If you've actually read Arizona's Secession Ordinance, then you've probably read the bare text version of it on WikiWand. It has a long preamble and a series of resolutions cleaving the Arizona Territory to the CSA. But that's not the only secession convention, nor the only document published in Arizona. It turns out there were two secession conventions in Arizona in the spring of 1861. Each one came up with its own grievances and resolutions. Only one of them became the official secession ordinance for Arizona. First, there was a convention on March 16th in Mesilla, present-day New Mexico. We have the full proceedings and resolutions of this meeting printed in the Mesilla Times newspaper, March 16th issue. They actually rushed the document and the proceedings over to the newspaper on the same day. The Secretary of the Provisional Government, James Lucas, was the president of the convention. Charles Hoppin was appointed convention secretary. Hoppin was a Rhode Island man who found community with the southern transplants in Doña Ana County, and then he became a supporter of the CSA. Present as delegates were future Confederate Arizona Congressman Marcus McWillie, Samuel Jones, William C. Jones, William McGroarty, Robert P. Kelly, John Ward, Roy Bean, J. Peter Deus, Louis Geek, and Pinos Altos District Attorney Thomas Maston. There may have been others, but they're not named in the record. Towards the opening of the convention, William Jones made a long, super bombastic speech where he said, "Northward, insult, wrong, and oppression are frowning upon us. Southward, a brilliant and glorious pathway of hope leads to the star of empire sailing over a constellation of free and sovereign states, and inviting us into the life-giving rays of its galaxy. There is no midway ground." I kid you not, he really said the life-giving rays of its galaxy. The convention recognized Philemon T. Herbert as a guest and invited him to a seat and to say a few words. Herbert was a former U.S. Congressman for California and a fiery Southern Democrat. He moved back to Texas in 1859 and was a delegate at the Texas Secession Convention in February 1861. The following month, he was sent to Arizona Territory by the state of Texas as an emissary for the Confederate States. Whatever Herbert said, I don't know, but he got a room full of applause. Then D.A. Thomas Maston gave a speech talking about the feelings and opinions of the people around Pinos Altos. Spoiler alert, most of them were Southerners and they wanted to join the Confederacy. Then William Jones presented the preamble and resolutions that are currently available to read on WikiWand. You know, the one where they're complaining about the black Republicans. The preamble and resolutions were unanimously adopted as a whole. The convention was adjourned that day. 1 week after that, on the 23rd of March, there was another public meeting, this one in Tucson. In this meeting, Granville Ulrey was the chairman and Daniel Stickney was secretary. Delegates present included T.M. Turner, R.M. Doss, Militia Colonel Palatine Robinson, Pat Dunn, and Territorial Treasurer Mark Aldrich. A committee was appointed to write the preamble and resolutions, and a motion was made to adjourn and give them until 3 p.m. on Monday to write them. So the convention adjourned for the weekend and reconvened on Monday, March 25th at 3 p.m. This time, Mark Aldrich was seated as chairman, while Daniel Stickney was still convention secretary. To summarize the 3 paragraphs in the preamble, the sectional government of the North was tyrannical, the slave states of the South have exhausted all means of compromise, and the federal government is never going to recognize Arizona Territory. But this time, there is only one resolution. Therefore be it resolved that under any and all circumstances our sympathies lie with the Southern Confederacy, and in the event that it shall be composed of a majority of the Southern states, we earnestly desire that she will extend to us the protection necessary to the proper development and advancement of this territory. There was some debate, and then the preamble and resolution were adopted by a majority of the delegates. That was the second Arizona Secession Convention. I'm not sure if the delegates in Mesilla and Tucson were aware of each other's conventions. There was frequent communication, but the two towns were 300 miles apart, and there was less travel and commerce happening due to the Apache Wars. Other newspaper sources I've seen express surprise that this happened right under their noses without them knowing about it until it was over and published in the paper. Either way, both population centers in the unrecognized territory seemed to favor joining the rebellion. Then we see on page 5 of the Times a public notice from Territorial Secretary James Lucas asking people to vote on the resolutions passed in the Mesilla Convention of March 16th. These were voted on in Mesilla and in Tucson on April 8, 1861, and approved by the voters. Only 68 people in Tucson voted, by the way, and it passed. That is how the preamble and resolutions from the Mesilla Convention became the official secession ordinance for Arizona Territory, and not the Tucson resolution. What's interesting to me is how members of the provisional government were present at both conventions, but neither document declared that the provisional government of Arizona was seceding. Arizona Territory hadn't been admitted to the Union, so they couldn't technically secede as a government. Instead, they spoke as the people of Arizona Territory, and they declared their desire to dissolve their bonds with the Union and for admission into the Southern Confederacy. Arizona seceded as a people, not as a provisional government. Even with the ratifying vote not happening till April 8th, Arizona Territory still seceded before Virginia, making Arizona the 8th regional government to enter into rebellion against the USA. Remember, according to Washington, D.C., they're still inside New Mexico territory, and that very much is a U.S. territory. After the Mesilla Convention was ratified by voters in April, Granville Ulrey was elected in August to be Arizona's congressional delegate to the Confederate House of Representatives. Something else I found interesting. The names of several officers in the provisional government show as delegates in these conventions, but not Governor Lewis Owings. Not a word about him, and I have no clue why. His name pops up repeatedly on the Confederate side throughout the war, but the published records of both secession conventions do not mention his name. Well, there you have it. There were 2 secession conventions in Arizona in the spring of 1861, 2 different sets of resolutions adopted, and only one of them became the official secession ordinance. And you heard it here first. Thank you for watching the Civil War Wild West Edition. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video on social media. We have social media links, check them out in the channel description. All of this would really help the channel grow and reach more Civil War students just like you.